Oh, yeah, then there was Gene Autry. I remember that one. It was a World Series, and of course, we know that he owns, and I think today still owns, the Los Angeles Angels. Either he had been given a Mickey Finn, or he'd had a little too much of the old bubbly, the bubbly, and a young man that I had brought into the business said, "Oh, we need somebody with an old hand, if you will." I went in, and there he was, kind of out of it, and his lieutenants did not want him to be exposed to the public in that shape. So I just, here again, you learn this by experience. There's some things that don't come out of textbooks. I just looked at the situation and said, "You get under that arm, you get under that arm," and I grabbed his hand, pulled him to his feet, and then had others form kind of a screen, get the cowboy hat off his head, and that's the way we shielded him, because there was no way we'd get him on the airplane without taking him through the terminal.
All right.
And it worked.
Nobody recognized him at all?
Nobody recognized him. Job completed. Put him in the seat, put a pillow under his head.
Did he ever send you a letter of thank you?
It's in here.
They must have told him when he got to his destination how he was helped out.
Yeah. I have a letter from the secretary thanking me for taking care. But it's that type of challenge, Bill, that makes public contact so darn interesting.
You have to think fast on your feet.
Yes, you do.
Well,
yes,
did you have any dismal disasters?
Well, I had the unpleasant, if you will, and it was unpleasant job. We were at a wage and salary review, and the assistant regional personnel manager came in, whispered in his boss's ear, and his boss just closed the book and said, "Gentlemen, our flight," and if my memory serves me right, I think it was flight 528, is down in Brooklyn. And folks may or may not remember, it was the first, one of the first, let me qualify that, aircraft accidents with a jet aircraft. United's jet and a TWA Constellation collided over lower New York. My first job was to round up the people that were meeting that incoming flight and get whatever information we could from them.
That'd be one of the worst jobs you could have.
That, and then I was dispatched to the scene to set up the communications center. And from there, I was dispatched to the hospital to set up the morgue.
You saw it all then.
So, it's that type of thing is indelible. And, let's face it, right here in our little town of Wenham, people may not appreciate what our police and fire are exposed to of that nature.
Right. Feel it's somewhat shielded.
These human tragedies that take place, and you can talk about them, you can see them on TV, you can see them simulated, if you will, in some of these movies that they put together. But until, what is it the Indians say? Until you walked in the other man's shoes a mile,
you don't understand.
You really don't.
Right.
So, kudos to the police and fire.
What other famous people did you meet? Can you recall any offhand?
Well, most of the presidents, and this is during this period, I'd say primarily from 1953 on to the end of my career, the presidents are those that aspired to being presidents because United Airlines chartered their campaigns. And so that was interesting.
So you got a chance to meet the world movers in many ways.
That's true.
People that made the world move and tick, so to speak.
Right.
Malcolm X was what you mentioned to me? Or
yes.
him,
Malcolm X and his followers went out of Logan. I think there was some 40 of them. the local authorities had put together a cadre of law enforcement that made it look like, they were expecting, I don't know what, the Battle of the Bulge or something. In any event, what I've learned over the period of years that I was involved, and I said, it prevails in your daily living, Bill, and that is, if you're going to make a mountain out of a molehill, you're going to get that mountain. If you treat people like people, you'll find out that basically they want to do the right thing.
And they respond to that.
And they respond to it. If it's insincere, they'll know it. If it's sincere, then they'll respond positively. Yeah.
What was the most interesting person you met?
The most interesting person I met? There's a good question. Okay, I wouldn't want to single anybody out.
Okay, how about the kindest?
All right, yes. That brings to me a lady who was a millinery buyer for Haley Brothers Department Store in Cleveland, Ohio. I can say that without hesitation because I've always felt, and I still do today, very strongly, that a lady should be a lady. And this lady was a lady from the top of her head to the tip of her toes. We'd have a crisis. The flight would be delayed for some reason, and it was what we call the Friday night get home specials, after a business week in New York. And they'd be stomping up and down, why isn't the airplane leaving, or why didn't we have an airplane? And she'd just be calmly and coolly standing there. And then at the appropriate moment, she'd say, Bill, there's one thing I like about United Airlines. They always take care of their passengers. I mean, she just, she would just put a damper on all this other nonsense that was going on.
Yeah.
Yes, you brought her back to my mind, Bill.
Good. Well, who was the most difficult to handle then? How about we have to take an opposite here?
Well, yeah, I have no problem with that one either. The most difficult was a vice president of an insurance company, and he had attempted to take either a Mexican hairless or a Chihuahua wrapped up in his top coat, and the passenger agent, in those days there was no such thing as jetways like we have today. It was the passenger stands. So as he was going up the passenger stand, the passenger agent spotted the dog and told him, unfortunately, you won't be able to take that dog on board. I went down to say goodnight, and the supervisor said, and this is Mr. Shailor, our chief agent. As soon as I heard those words, I knew that this was a problem. And so he asked me, who's that? Passenger agent, he's fired. Who's that? Senior passenger agent, he's fired. Who's that? I said, this was the supervisor, he's fired. And then I said, well, why don't we step in the little office we have here and see if we can't resolve this. So I said, did you order a kennel? No, he hadn't ordered a kennel, and I proceeded to attempt to get one without success, even to have one flown over by helicopter from Newark Airport. That being the case, I volunteered to personally take care of the animal, get it out on the next flight in a kennel, but he wasn't buying any of this. I can't say that he was intoxicated, but he'd had a few and the edge was on it. So they got up when I turned to the supervisor and said, well, it's time for the flight to go, cancel his reservation. And he stormed out into the lobby, and he was using 4-letter words, and I just face-to-face him and said I was sure he was a gentleman. I knew I was, and I didn't appreciate the language he was using. If he didn't stop, I would have to call the authorities. And so he was ushered out of the lobby, and you learn when you hear what I'm about to say. One of these big hefty fellows comes over and said, I don't know how you stood that. He said, if that had been me, I would have, in essence, put him to sleep with a properly placed punch. And I didn't respond to that because you know that person can be your next problem. So